Good morning, everybody. My name is Tom Halverson. I'm the president and CEO of CoBank, coming to you in the morning of the 28th of May from Denver, Colorado. It's a great pleasure to be with you, and I want to particularly thank our friends from the U.S. Soybean Export Council for giving me the kind opportunity and invitation to join you. I lived in Asia myself, in Hong Kong, for a number of years. Quite some time ago, actually during the SARS outbreak. And so while on the one hand, I would very much enjoy the opportunity to be with you all in Asia for this important event, under these circumstances, obviously that's not happening and we're doing it in this dematerialized form. But please accept my heartfelt congratulations on being able to continue to bring yourselves together in this forum. And please accept my hopes that I may be able to join you in person at some future date. Well, the Great Recession had many explanations and causes, but it was predominantly a phenomenon that came from the weaknesses and vulnerabilities in the more advanced countries, including the United States, in their financial sector and their mortgage markets and other things that deteriorated really rapidly and created a very bad macroeconomic result in the United States. And then in other Western countries that had vulnerabilities, it kind of got exported. But it didn't happen in the same time, in the same way, and in the same magnitude in many high growth developing countries in Asia and other parts of the world. And there was some differentiation, and therefore those higher growth countries, continue to have high growth through that period and afterward, and that frankly helped bring the crisis to an end more comprehensively and more quickly than would otherwise have been true. This time, however, this is caused not by some weakness or vulnerability in anybody's economy. It is a public health problem caused by a virus that is an equal opportunity invader of every potential person, every potential country, every potential economy on Earth. There's no way to stop it. There are ways to slow down its spread and mitigate it and so forth. And therefore, what we're experiencing now is a very rapid, highly correlated, pro-cyclical contraction in economic activity everywhere that COVID-19 shows up, right? And which means everybody's having a contraction all at the same time or in a very compressed period of time. So you can't have a situation now where things are really bad economically in the G7 countries, but China's doing fine, right? Now China's got its own challenges as a result of COVID. So do we. So does France. So is Japan. So is the UK. So is Canada. So nobody can we can't swap locomotives and have one country or one region pull the train while everybody else gets to take a little slack time and be a passenger. We're all suffering similarly in a very short space of time, and it makes it harder to get out of the situation because nobody can act as the single large catalyst to keep the train moving. This is a more severe impact on the world economy than the crisis of 10 to 12 years ago, which was the biggest one we could remember in many decades. So the projections all indicate that the COVID-19 impact on the world economy is going to be much more severe than the Great Recession, and therefore to look for a comparable, you have to go back decades further. And while there may be people around, your grandparents or others who were around in the 1930s, there are fewer and fewer of them, but that's how far back in time you have to go to find an impact on the world economy in general, the US economy in particular, that is equivalent or analogous to what we're experiencing now. And the higher growth emerging countries and economies of the world won't have the same degree of contraction as we will have, for example, in the United States. They will certainly feel the impact of this contraction. And even this one, if you're a developing high growth economy, will be more severe, more impactful than the experience of 10 to 12 years ago. As a consequence of policy on the one hand and individual behavior of businesses and individuals on the other, The impact on the economy of the United States is more significant than any economic event in my lifetime, right? The size of the contraction of GDP, the speed with which it has occurred, and the resultant impact, for example, on unemployment levels, which went from the lowest level of unemployment in my lifetime to the highest level of unemployment in my lifetime in less than 2 months. So we are well into this process, but it's going to have a significant tail. And whether the shape of that GDP recovery curve looks like an L or looks like a U or looks like a W remains to be seen. But what I can say is that we are very unlikely to kind of return to the status quo ante quickly. This COVID-19 outbreak is going to have a significant impact on the nature of the economy. Certain sectors are going to find it much harder to return because of the way consumers behave. Businesses are going to have to run their businesses in different ways because it's our view that we will be living in a world of COVID-19 unless or until an effective vaccine is made available that frankly is made available to effectively the entire population of the world. So it's going to look and feel different in terms of what the economy looks like in the future. The fiscal and monetary authorities in the United States of America, by their actions, have demonstrated that they clearly understand that the magnitude of the macroeconomic problem that we are experiencing as a result of COVID-19 is unlike anything we've experienced in our lifetime, and that you have to go back to the 1930s to find an equivalent. The reason I can say that with the confidence and certainty that I'm saying it is because you can see by their actions. Take first the monetary policy authorities. They have used all of the tools in their toolbox and they have invented some new ones, and they have used them with greater speed and greater volume than ever before in history. And the size of the balance sheet, the tools that they've used to do so, all have demonstrated the seriousness and the urgency and the action orientation of the monetary policy authorities, who continue to commit that they will do whatever things are within their power and that they deem necessary and prudent to attack the monetary and financial market manifestations of the crisis that they can influence. On the other hand, it's harder to get things done because of our divided federal government on the fiscal side of the house. Having said that, the magnitude of the fiscal stimulus actions that the Congress of the United States and the executive branch working together have executed over the last 2 months dwarf anything that has been done in peacetime in our life. We're talking about several trillions of dollars, the types of spending that usually are only associated with war, and not even small wars, big wars, because these are large numbers. And so both the monetary and fiscal policy authorities have stepped forward boldly. They have stepped forward promptly. And while there may be a lot of debate about what they could have done better or what they could do differently or what they could do tomorrow, they have done a great many things, very innovative things in a short period of time, in a very difficult situation that no living policymaker has ever experienced before. The U.S. farmers and ranchers and the agribusiness complex in this country are incredibly efficient, as you know. They produce fantastic products that are sold not just in the United States and North America, but throughout the world. They entered this COVID situation after several years already of vulnerability caused by a sustained lowering of commodity prices since really the period 2013 and 2014. That had been exacerbated by the anticipated and unanticipated consequences of a great many trade disputes and trade negotiations as and among the United States and its many trading partners, which suppressed some exports and imports and just trade volume in general. So what we've experienced across the commodity price complex is softer prices. Many of those prices have, we hope, found a bottom and started to stabilize. In some cases have started to come up as supply and demand dynamics start to adjust. Net farm income for producers is obviously very highly correlated to commodity prices. You know, we have an incredibly productive agricultural production base in the United States, and we're constantly producing more, and we have a surge capacity to demonstrably produce more if market conditions are favorable. What you see in the graph here is the fact that commodity prices and therefore net farm income had softened quite a bit in the 2013 to 2016 period. They'd come up some, but as a result of the uncertainties of trade negotiations and trade disruptions and dislocations and other factors, now including COVID-19, although net farm income is going up, the percentage of that comes through transfers from the government has been increasing dramatically. Obviously for the United States, as is so many other countries in the world, food security is a national security consideration. We have to have a stable, secure, safe agricultural production complex that is not pushed around by the vicissitudes of international relations and other things. And so in order to ensure the stability of our agricultural production complex in the uncertainties and dislocations we've been experiencing, particularly this year, the amount of the net farm income that's been coming through various types of ordinary and extraordinary transfer payments across the federal government has increased substantially. International trade and the efficiency of the economy are very highly correlated factors. Economists almost unanimously agree that these are good things. But survey results, whether they be in the United States or almost any other country around the world, would indicate that that is not a sentiment that is broadly shared within the population. And while it might be right that more international trade, more mutually beneficial trade makes everybody more prosperous more quickly than if we didn't have it, that's nevertheless a minority opinion almost everywhere and almost always. And the advocates of mutually beneficial trade in government or out of government are always in the minority. And in election cycles in any country in the world, that's a hard case to make. And we should, and I am, be concerned about sentiment that is exacerbating the difficulties of maintaining mutually beneficial trading results. Which allow us to produce and export, for example, agricultural surpluses that other countries that have faster GDP growth, but particularly faster population growth and need to import food supplies, benefit from. And so we need to, all of us, maintain our solid voice of support for mutually beneficial trading arrangements, even when it is, as it often is, a minority position that is unpopular politically, even though it is right economically. The most consequential relationship in the world today, and has been for many years and will be for the rest of my lifetime, is the relationship between the United States of America and the People's Republic of China. I believe that for a variety of reasons. These two countries are enormously interdependent, mutually interdependent. This interdependence has grown up relatively quickly in the last 20 or 30 years. And there is a popular banter going on these days about the possibility of this relationship becoming much more strained and difficult, and these two countries getting into what some euphemistically call a new Cold War. The problem with that label, the problem with that idea and paradigm is the Cold War paradigm was the relationship that prevailed for decades between the United States and the Soviet Union, which was a very different type of relationship because there was no mutual interdependence or trade. There was just political conflict that was maintained without a lot of economic cost other than the outlays for military and foreign policy expenditures and the like. it is not possible, or it would be exceptionally costly and expensive economically, financially, and politically to disaggregate the economy and dismantle the mutual interdependence that's developed in our lifetime between China and the United States. The challenge and the opportunity that we have now and in the coming decades is to find a way to manage the inevitable, expected alignment challenges that we're going to have as two great, powerful, significant countries and economies, to find ways to work through the places where we are experiencing difficulties and where we are not aligned in the way we see our interests and how best to protect and prosecute them, but to agree in places where we can agree. One place, for example, would be mutually beneficial agricultural and other trade. And this is going to be a very broad, deep, complex relationship to manage, which is not can't be understood as some kind of a light switch where we go from being highly interdependent and mutually doing mutually beneficial business and then flipping that switch to off, where our total value of exports and imports, goes to zero, or where China ceases to be a significant agricultural export market for the United States. Those two outcomes are neither desirable or frankly possible in any realistic period of time at any realistic or acceptable level of costs to our respective economies and societies. And so it's my hope, my belief, my conviction that the United States and the People's Republic of China need to find ways to work together and to peacefully resolve their alignment challenges and disagreements in the best interests not just of their own citizens, but of, frankly, the rest of the world economy and the rest of the world. Well, it's been a great privilege for me to join you, even if in this dematerialized form. I would have greatly preferred to see you all in person in Singapore, in Asia. But in the meantime, and until such an opportunity does exist, I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak to you all. I wish you all a tremendously successful conference, and I wish us all a speedy and comprehensive exit to the difficulties that we're now experiencing, both from an economic perspective and a public health perspective. Best wishes to you all.